We have Jorge Ventura coming on right now. He's live from Brooklyn Center calling in. And believe me, it's awesome. We appreciate him. He's a friend of the show. He's been on many times. We've been through a lot of riots together, back to back, actually covering things. And so we're going to go to him on the field right now. Jorge Ventura of Daily Caller. George, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Elijah, for having me on. It's great to be back.
Okay, so tell me right now, where are we? What's going on behind you?
So we're at the Brooklyn Center Police Department, and right behind me, as you guys can see, this is actually the first kind of layer of barricades and fencing. We have some National Guardsmen here, and they've been here since Sunday, since basically the death of Dante Wright. Now, actually, as I'm talking to you right now, Elijah, they're actually adding now the second layer of fencing and barricades as we speak. So, and they're adding extra protection. One thing that we're kind of noticing too, Elijah, is Minnesota State Troopers, the local police department here with Brooklyn Center PD and the National Guard. They've been really working hand in hand on controlling the kind of, the hectic situation here, the civil unrest. Minnesota created a new program called Minnesota Operation Safety Net. So these three law enforcement agencies now work together when it comes to dealing with this stuff. And obviously with the Derek Chauvin trial just around the corner, they want to make sure they're prepared. But this is where we're seeing constant civil unrest, and we're expected tonight will be the fifth straight night here at Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis.
About how many people do you think, or do you estimate, are actually taking part in the demonstrations?
So according to local law enforcement, in a press conference they did yesterday, they have around 500 people that came out last night. They made 24 arrests. The majority of those arrests, according to local law enforcement in that press conference, say that the majority of those arrests don't live actually in the Brooklyn Center. The night before that, they arrested 72 people. And then the night before that, they arrested 40 people. So last night, I would say, was probably the most contained so far. But as we're kind of heading into the weekend, I know law enforcement here want to prepare that they want to make sure that they're extra prepared. And that's why I think we're seeing now that second layer of protection here at the Brooklyn Center PD. There you can kind of see some National Guardsmen. And like I said, that second layer of barricades and fences is added right now as I'm speaking to you right now, Elijah.
Yeah, okay, so let me ask you something. I know that you and I were both in Portland last summer, and the images that I'm seeing right now look very similar to what happened in that 100-day siege of the courthouse. Do you feel like this protest is just a bunch of natural reaction from people who live in the neighborhood, or is this some form of like organized far-left protest that we've seen in the Pacific Northwest?
I would say it's a bit of a mix. You do have the locals here who are angry. You are going to have those agitators that do come into a time like this and take advantage of the situation. And we are seeing those folks coming out of town. Like I said, according to local law enforcement, they're saying that the majority of the arrests they're making are from people who are not out of town. As you guys can see, some of the footage, they've been really well organized with having the umbrella shields, having gas masks. A lot of the crowd here has been throwing objects over the fence to law enforcement. They've been throwing things like bricks, bottles of alcohol, rocks, and other objects like that. So it's been a mix of everything. I would expect, I think you might agree with me here, Elijah, is I would expect as we get closer to the final verdict of the Derek Chauvin trial that we're going to see more out-of-towners start to roll in, and I think that's when we'll see more organizing happen here in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask you, do you feel like people on the ground here are just practicing for what's going to happen when the Chauvin trial completely wraps up? Do you hear people talking, let's say, on the street about the George Floyd case? Is there talks about what people are going to be doing when that all wraps up? Like, what have you heard on the ground?
Being on the ground, Elijah, everyone is very angry. Tensions are high, and basically anyone that you talk to, they automatically bring up, the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin case. And that's right now that's in the back of everyone's mind. So it feels like things are brewing up. It feels like this is kind of like the pregame before the big game. But it feels like tensions are heating up here. We're getting to that moment where things might interrupt. And the what happened with Sunday with Dante Wright, it did not help. With the Derek Chauvin case, because it just kind of adds flames before the big fire. And it feels like the big eruption is coming soon within this next week or two. Things are especially kind of heating up for that big moment, I would say.
What's the worst thing that you've seen so far happening on the ground in terms of actual violence and interactions between police and rioters?
So far, from what I've seen is now right across the street here, Elijah, I'm not sure if you can see from here, but we do have apartment complexes. So what I did notice on my first night reporting is a lot of the families here have been affected by the tear gas and the crowd control munitions. We've seen a lot of kids coughing. We have seen a couple, I would say, a few fights breaking out. But I think one thing that stood out was on my first night. There was a female female in the crowd who got hit by a crock control munition in the face, and she was gushing blood. So it just kind of is a reminder of the dangers when you're out here for this type of stuff. Crock control munitions, as you know, Elijah, are just flying through the air. People are throwing objects, and things are very dangerous and chaotic. I arrived the night after the mass looting, so I know some folks have already seen the videos of the mass looting break out, but that's kind of as bad as has been seen so far. But a lot of the families, like I said, in these apartment complexes have been impacted by the crowd control munitions.
Yeah, and I am concerned about that. And from what we're seeing here, I like how you said it was like the pregame for the big game. I mean, is this any indicator of what we're going to see with the Chauvin riots? And do you think that there's going to be mass sustained unrest like this within the next couple of weeks when the deliberations wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to say this, but I think it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot worse because the George Floyd and the Derek Chauvin. The whole nation has their eyes on it. And what I've been seeing on Twitter accounts from Black Lives Matter across the country is they're saying, hey, we're all waiting for this moment. And if we don't get what we want, we're going to, cities are going to go in flames. And this is not just Minneapolis. These are major cities across the country. So, like I said, I don't like to say it, but I feel like things are going to get worse. And also, Elijah, some news actually broke out from Chicago where a 13-year-old was killed in a police-involved shooting. And according to Chicago police, they're going to release that video today, 2:30 Central Time. So I know it should be pretty close. I think we're less than an hour away from that video being released. So according to journalist Andy No, he's actually been posting flyers of Antifa organizing in Chicago tonight. So like I said, Elijah, it kind of feels like things are brewing up. And what happened with Dante Wright, what happened with that 13-year-old in Chicago, it just doesn't help. It just seems like the tensions keep building up for that big moment. I expect things are going to get worse because I think we're going to see a lot of out-of-towners head into Minneapolis, and that's when we've seen a lot of chaos happen, is when these out-of-towners come into the city and start to cause havoc.
Yeah, is this the new normal, George? I mean, when an officer kills somebody, I mean, is this American society now where we're just going to have to deal with riots, with protests, with looting anytime something like this happens? I mean, do you see this becoming, I would say, almost a defining part of the future of this country?
I mean, I would hope not, right? Because I mean, I think, just as a journalist, you would like to, everyone step back and not always make everything about race. I think, every situation is different and context is always needed. So, as an American, as a journalist, you would hope not, but just the way the mainstream media is and the way that it drives divide, it just seems like this is kind of the new normal. And, I hate to say it, hopefully, we don't get to that point, but unfortunately there is. And I think, one thing that we have to remind folks is when situations like this happen and we see the civil unrest, a lot of Black and brown people actually suffer. A lot of businesses suffer. I know a couple of days ago, we seen all the mass looting that happened here in the Brooklyn Center. Obviously last year in the summer riots, you seen it, Elijah, when you and me were in Kenosha and we were interviewing small business owners after what happened in Kenosha. So we have to remind ourselves that, obviously situations like this are very unfortunate. And, I think, we need to review them and always want to be better as a country. We want better policing. We want to have our community safer. But let's not forget when these situations break out that a lot of Black and brown people do suffer when their businesses are destroyed and the communities are destroyed by people who, don't live here necessarily.
George, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're doing amazing work out there. If people want to find your work, if they want to follow your work, what's the best way for them to keep up with you?
If you guys want the real, live updates, Twitter is the best way at Ventura Report. Also, if you guys like, all the storytelling and everything compiled and want longer context, my Instagram is great at Jorge Ventura TV. And follow any of our great reporters at the Daily Caller. We're here. We got Richie McGinnis right now on the ground. We also have another great reporter, Lisa Benetton. She's on the ground here as well in Minneapolis.
George Ventura of the Daily Caller, thank you so much. Please stay safe.
Thanks, Elijah.
A great philosopher once said that you can be 2 out of 3 things: liberal, smart, or honest, but you can't be all 3. At Slightly Offensive, we're smart and honest. And if you like this clip, head over to Slightly Offensive YouTube channel by clicking right here where you can find new episodes of our show weekly. We're bringing you the topics, news stories, and angles that will have you saying, why the hell wasn't I subscribed sooner? Also, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel too.